folks, so today I popped down to London Camera Exchange because Fuji were there with one of their reps to do a touch and try event, and they had the XM5, and better still they had the new 16 to 55mm kit lens, and also the 500mm kit lens, and the firmware on the XM5 was the final release firmware before the camera actually comes out to us. So a lot of the reviews you've seen of the camera have been of pre-release firmware, and I believe that I got to test the actual firmware that's going to be on the release cameras. So before we do anything else, I just want to show you a little bit of footage that I very quickly and haphazardly recorded. It was a very small shop and I had very cramped sort of conditions to work in. It was quite difficult, it was quite busy, obviously because Fuji rep was there with all the kit, and there's quite a lot of background noise, but we recorded this little bit of footage on the XM5. We did some live tests to illustrate some of the autofocus issues I've experienced, and obviously the Fuji guy very graciously noted them down, and we'll take the details back to Fuji. But I have to say that it was more of a case of asking for some features rather than having issues with the autofocus. Now, again, a caveat, I didn't get time to thoroughly test the camera. I won't know until I get my camera, but it was enough for me, what I saw today, for me to put my deposit down for my pre-order. Another caveat is that I did show a little clip of a new autofocus mode in zone autofocus, which is really cool, but I put my pocket tree a little bit too close to the back of the XM5, so it's not the XM5 not focusing. It's me being an idiot with my pocket 3, and a little bit of the footage of the back of the camera that I'm showing throughout this video is not going to quite be in focus, but what I'm going to try and do is put the actual live footage with the back of the camera footage synced, so you can get a better look at what the actual camera did where I have that footage. As I say, my time with the camera was a little bit limited, but I was able to do what I wanted. There were no restrictions. And the guys there were absolutely fab in offering advice and listening to my thoughts, as you'll be able to see. So let's watch the clip and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that one will have been in at least 10 reps hands.
And that's more like it. So it's recording 25p, 4K.
Believe it or not, sometimes we are busy.
I'm not. I'm in the wrong shop. I think this should be Wexton South Gospel.
Oh, right. Them's fighting words, them.
Hey there, I was busy then.
Oh, shut up.
They're sending them 40
well, I'll talk about the firmware on the video.
Yeah, you can say whatever you like. Yeah, we'll have to speed up then.
Try that work too much.
No, we'll try.
We've got our Fuji rep in the background, but we don't want to focus on him because we're testing how the autofocus sticks. So this is technically a firmware that's going to go.
It is the release firmware.
This is the release firmware. And we've been testing it with some funky new autofocus modes in zone autofocus, where we're going to have like long, thin strips, which means focusing on thin objects or writing on close-up things is really handy. So we're just giving it. It's just a quick try out. It's not a review. Just testing, but I thought I'd come down and have a look.
Okay.
And it's an adorable little
thing. Yeah, that's fine.
I might get a shot of it next to my XS20 so you can see the size. And this is with the new 16 to 50 XF f2.8 to 4.8, and it's at f2.8. It's wide open for all the naysayers who say you don't test it at the right f-stop. It's as wide as possible, so we have. Have you watched Conspiracies before?
I haven't. No.
Oh, you don't. Oh, see, I turned away and it's got you now.
Oh, interesting.
So there.
Yeah, ideally, yeah.
But if I take it away, it immediately re-gets me. So that's what we were talking about an option to select the face or to give priority to that face, because now it's got you. It loves you now. But at least it's working on you. But I just take that out of the way and it's immediately back on me. That's what I was talking about, but that's a feature that can be added. The main thing is it's like instantly swapping. Now it's happy for me now, it doesn't make you anymore.
I bought it from
It's got really good close focus in that lens. Okay.
Even if it's not a stock.
So there you go. So the new autofocus mode is the fact that in zone of focus, we don't just have squares of differing sizes. We can have sort of elongated shapes or rectangles of different sizes, which gives a little bit more flexibility in the way the autofocus worked. I also got some clarification on how the autofocus points work with Fuji and asked if there would be an option to have more options for selectable, but apparently the way that the autofocus points work is while you may only have 117 selectable, they are all active. It's just obviously I suggested it might be nice to have the option to have that granularity in single point autofocus. And again, note was taken of that. So well done to Fuji on that for listening. It was a great experience. I was using a variety of lenses. I tried the 27mm Pancake, which makes the camera very, very small. But also I put on the new kit lens, which again is nice and lightweight, has OIS. Stability's not great, but it's you haven't got IBIS in the camera, so it's never going to be amazing. But you know, handheld with some slower shots later on in this video, you'll see that it's not too bad because I recorded some shots of the 500mm telephoto lens. Now, this little clip I did was at f2.8. I know a lot of people have been criticising the various creators for not shooting wide open. I made a point of shooting at f2.8 wide open. You'll see that the issue that we had with the camera was that when I turned my head, it tended to focus on the other face in the scene. But as soon as I turned my head back, it was reacquiring this time, which on the prior firmware it wasn't. So again, a suggestion was that we had a touchscreen focus lock. So once I'm on the face, I just tap my face and the camera knows that I want that to be the priority. And it's more of a feature request. The camera was pretty accurate in the limited time I had, but it was limited. Now we've got some more extensive tests of the eye autofocus when we use the 500mm lens. And I gave it a challenging test. More on that in a minute. Suffice to say, the camera has excellent build quality. It's metal on the top, similar build to the XT30 was, and very much reminds me of a small version of the XT30. A lot of people have criticised the dials, but I found them very tactile. The little tiny dial on the back, which people have said is spongy, does have a soft feel to it. Some people don't like it. I do like it. It feels quite damped. I don't think it's spongy in the sense that of poor build quality. It's spongy because that's the way it's been designed. If you don't like that, try the camera out first for yourself. Always recommend going to one of the touch and try events and give the camera a try. And the footage you've just seen was completely done live. The Fuji rep had to react to that footage and was surprised when the camera did what it did. But it wasn't as like the issues I'd had prior with the latest autofocus, where there's been, you know, issues with it locking onto things and then not coming back. And when I've reviewed the footage, I mean, you watch it as well. You tell me if I've missed something. I wear glasses. I do miss things on occasion, but I didn't see it miss autofocus in that test, and it locked onto the Fuji guy quite quickly when I turned my head. As I say, it would be nice to have that locking option. So again, it's just the first impressions, but the autofocus seems pretty good. It seems better. It felt snappier than my XS20 and my XT5. So there's definitely some improvements. I'm not saying it's fixed. Okay? I'm definitely not saying it's fixed at all, because I couldn't test it thoroughly. I'm not saying it's not fixed. All I'm saying is what I was able to test in the little short clip you saw worked quite well, with the caveat of the camera locking onto another face when I turned my head away. But while I had my head turned, it was locked on to me. So something that could be easily, I think, picked up with not a tweak to the autofocus and how it works, but, you know, a quality of life update to allow you to maybe go, I want that subject as the priority. A priority selection would be nice. A bit like how the zone autofocus already has this built in, but in the AI autofocus, so that it knows what to focus on. And these were done on standard number 1 autofocus settings in the camera. So I just picked the default out the box autofocus settings. We had a zone box over my face so that the camera, if it had to default to zone, would focus on me if it lost me for any reason, but it didn't. It only lost me when I turned my head, and it didn't go defaulting to the zone. It defaulted to, oh, there's another face. And that's where the question about the priority comes in. So let's move on to using the 500mm lens. So I put the 500mm lens on the XM5. Wow, it looked tiny. My first impressions of the 500mm lens of its nice build quality. It's incredibly light. Sorry, that's my cat meowing at me because it's tea time. It's incredibly light, much lighter than I anticipated. And I think I would love to save up for one just for the lightness. I had a very quick test in the street, and it was just a busy street that I went out into to get a couple of shots of like a road sign, and there wasn't any wildlife apart from people. But I was fairly happy that it was picking out people. I just had zone autofocus on, and it was so crowded that the zone box I had was quite big and it was picking up other things. But when I got it to focus on the things I wanted it to, it did appear to focus on them. I also did some test footage, which I mounted the camera on a tripod. I had a fairly slow shutter speed of 1/60th, that was my bad. But I was basically focusing the camera through several panes of glass, a display box, and across the street to somebody sitting in a cafe. And they were on behind another pane of glass as well. And the camera was able to lock onto the eye autofocus. As you can see, I brought it up here now. I brought up the back of the camera as well, so you can see that. Again, apologies, I had my Pocket 3 too close to the camera. This is why I brought the actual footage up, so that you can see that it is actually focusing on the actual person there. Now, I did the first test on the standard autofocus settings, and when you probably can see when a car comes past, the camera loses focus and then it reacquires. That's because we've told it to be not too sticky. And that was a problem I had before, where even on the middling settings, it was very, very sticky on the latest updates. I then set the camera to the maximum stickiness for autofocus, so that it was like really stubborn at leaving the subject that it had found. And it worked quite well for me to be able to keep the focus maintained on the person in the cafe versus the prior autofocus mode. Every other setting was the same, and all I'd done was stuck a zone over them and had the eye autofocus on, so that if it lost the eye box, it fell back to zone. And it seemed to be fine. I've had a look at the footage and it seems to be in focus. It's slightly soft. That's because I was shooting through a window and I didn't want to like sort of stick myself outside in the street with a giant telephoto lens. As I say, I had a quick go outside with the stills photos I've shown you, when I had a quick photograph up the street of somebody's hat, and then photographed somebody about to press a zebra crossing, or a crossing to get across the road. I did a couple of quick shots there, and the road sign, and nothing special. But the lens was very easy to handle, and surprisingly easy to handle on such a small camera body, that although I wouldn't use it much on that, if I was doing video work, I might. And it does look tiny on there, but I was very impressed by the 500mm lens. Obviously, I'd need to do far more extensive tests to be certain of how it forms on, wildlife shoots and things like that. But from the point of view of the ergonomics of the lens, I really thought it was going to be quite heavy, being based on a lens for the medium format cameras, and it wasn't. It was really, really surprisingly light, and I would love to have that in my kit bag over the 100 to 400, which is it's a heavy lens, that. So let's sum up, it's been a really good day. I got to spend about a couple of hours in the shop, although it's surprising how little time you get to test because the time flies. I had a very good chat with the Fuji rep, talked about a number of quality of life updates I would love to see on the cameras, and he was noting them down in a little notebook, and it was a very nice experience. For me, it was enough for me to put my deposit down on the camera, so I'm looking forward to picking the camera up and showing you what it can do. I mean, obviously I'll be giving the autofocus a full workout to see whether there's still some gremlins in there, but certainly for replacing my ZV-1 as a little vloggy carry around everyday camera, which is what I wanted this camera for, absolutely I think it's going to do that. I think from what I've seen, the updated autofocus seems to be on par with the ZV-1. And if it can match the ZV-1, I think that's a good thing. We definitely discussed some issues of that, yeah, the Fuji autofocus, to get the most out of it, has to be configured and customized, and a lot of people disagree with that point. So that's something for you to throw into the description below and have a chat in the comments below. Sorry, yeah, in the comments below, not the description. Chat in the comments below and let me know what you think about how you do have to configure the Fuji autofocus to get the best from it. I think it's a far more technical camera than Sony, which tends to be you set it up and it'll work out the box. But I haven't really tried a Sony camera. I'd have to try one to see how good the autofocus was. But I thoroughly enjoyed using the camera. It's got a little diminutive design. I mean, if you look at it here next to my XS20, it's just so tiny. Battery life, yeah, it was about 60% charged when I got it, and I drained it to about 10%, but it still had no problem driving the big lens, and it certainly can run the 500mm. So overall, I was impressed enough to order one. So can't wait till it arrives. Anyway, folks, we're about to run out of recording time, and sorry I'm not getting the videos out quite as often as I would like, but I am imminently within a week or two moving house, so I'm living out of boxes now, and I don't always get the time to put a video up every week, so I'll just do what I can. But I just thought you'd like to see some actual real pictures and footage from the final firmware of the XM5, and a little bit of an update about its build quality and what I think of it. And I really like what I see, and I'm looking forward to showing you it. So if you got value from this video, please do like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications if you want to see more content like this. And I'll see you all later, folks. Bye.